When I tell you that the Secret Service failure is honestly worse than we could have ever imagined, I am not kidding or blowing that out of proportion, because today I'm going to tell you about not only communication errors, but how they could have avoided this entire thing altogether, and what 9/11 actually has to do with this as well. Now, of course, I want to hear your opinion. No matter if you agree or disagree, let me know what you think down below after the video. If you like what I do, consider subscribing. Let's go ahead and get into it. Now, we've heard a lot about the communication issues and local pointing fingers at Secret Service and vice versa, obviously. And so I was wondering, like, what kind of communication do these guys actually use as far as local and Secret Service and all of that? And do they actually have a dedicated network? And that brought me all the way back to 9/11. It's widely known that firefighters, at least 100, actually lost their lives in the second tower that fell, even after the first one had fallen, because the communication issues, whether the system was just bogged down because there were so many people trying to call out and call in and all of that, they just could not get through to let those other firefighters know to get out of that building, because it's most likely going to collapse now as well. So after recommendations from the 9/11 Commission report and also the middle class tax relief that was passed in 2012 by Barack Obama, that actually helped implement this thing called FirstNet. Now, FirstNet is its own dedicated infrastructure for first responders. So local, state, federal, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if they are police officers or firefighters, emergency response, even teams that go in before and after natural disasters, right? They can all have access to FirstNet. And what's cool about it is, like, let's say you get a lot of people together, like, I don't know, at a Trump rally where there's 25,000 people or whatever. They're all trying to access the internet, right? So it's like, okay, it's bogging the system down. Well, FirstNet users can actually access band 14. So think about all this information going everywhere, right? And everybody's trying to access this and that, whatever. Band 14 is its own information highway that basically all law enforcement that's a part of the program can utilize. Now, I bring up FirstNet because we have this dedicated way for local, state, federal law enforcement to communicate, and it seems like just simple text messages back and forth were all that was being communicated. Not only that, you also had a command center, right, where Secret Service, local law enforcement were basically communicating, or supposed to be communicating, inside the command center. Why aren't all these guys tied onto this network, right? So that way, hey, if I see a suspicious person, I don't know, maybe one that's wandering around basically unsecured AGR building, for instance, I could then live stream, because this is one of the features too. You can live stream from like patrol car to patrol car without fear of it actually lagging or anything. So then I could live stream, hey, suspicious person right here. And that goes to everybody in the network. Now, were these guys using FirstNet? I don't know. But if they weren't, that is a big, big problem. If you're holding an event like this, you know, there's certain devices that can use this. I know Androids, some of your Galaxy products and stuff are tied into FirstNet, and I know that they are available to use this, and I'm sure more will be coming down the pipeline. But if you're at an event like this, you know, you say, okay, everybody, you know, we have these dedicated phones for this event. Once we're done with them, I don't know, turn them back in or whatever. You know, it just seems like if you have that dedicated service in order to communicate, why wouldn't you use it? So again, I don't know if they were, but it really seems like with all the text messages back and forth, and, you know, Secret Service saying they didn't know about the shooter until the shots went off, and then local saying, hey, we sent pictures, you know, or information on the backpack, the bicycle, a picture of the shooter. Somewhere, somebody wasn't getting the information that was needed. And what we absolutely do know is that Trump's immediate Secret Service team didn't get this information at all. So that's something that I'm hoping that maybe in another hearing, another congressional hearing, that somebody will bring up, like, hey, FirstNet, you know, this entire infrastructure built by AT&T, approved and all that, was that being used? And if not, why? Now, here's the other thing that is equally concerning, along with you know, officers, Secret Service on the ground and all of that, and their communication blunders, but also the drones. Well, local PD offered drone service, right? Secret Service turned that down.
I'm also told that local law enforcement suppliers offered the Secret Service drones and you declined them. Is that true? Well, that remains to be seen. You've been on the job a few days. So far, you've fired nobody. Now, the drones.
Thank you,
Were
sir.
you offered drones?
Senator
So
Holloway.
there was an offer to fly a drone on that day.
And why did you deny it?
I think the ability of local law enforcement to provide an asset, we probably should have taken them up on it if it was offered.
They didn't use their own drones either, but they did have things that could have been used to detect those drones. They could force those drones to drop right where they were flying. You know, they could force them to land right then and there. Well, they couldn't get the system up until I think it was a little after 5 o'clock, maybe 5:20, even though it was supposed to go up by 3 o'clock. Now, they said that the cell service was so bad, it's a rural area, you know, there were so many people on the network and all of this. Well, FirstNet actually does provide drone service, dedicated drone service as well. So again, that goes back to FirstNet. Why wasn't it used? But we know that the shooter flew his drone for 11 minutes. Now I've used a drone, and sometimes it loses connection based on the antennas or the model or, you know, what's going on. Sometimes it'll show 22 satellites in the area or 42 or whatever, and sometimes it just loses connection. I've never been to a place where I just can't fly the drone at all. But there's also signal boosters you can use with drones. But guess what? The Secret Service didn't bring those at all because I guess they just didn't think they were going to have some kind of an issue in a rural area with 25,000 people on that same network. This could have really diverted his plan altogether. He could have said, man, there's just too much going on. You know, they're kind of figuring this whole thing out. Maybe if communication was shared between Secret Service, you know, hey, suspicious backpack, bicycle, maybe, I don't know, hey, he's got a rangefinder, dude. This guy's acting really weird. Maybe, hey, we lost sight of this guy. We need to maybe let Trump's Secret Service team, let them know to hold this off. 30 seconds before the shots are fired, an officer spots him when he's hoisted up to the roof, and that's when, you know, Crooks turns his gun towards him, right? And he, you know, everybody's like, you know, screaming, hey, he's got a gun, he's got a long gun. You know, at that point, at that communication, hey, he's got a gun, was going through to everybody, you still could have stopped it. There were so many chances for them to just hold this off. Let's figure out who this guy is before they just let him get on the roof and start taking 8 shots that were fairly well placed towards President Trump. So it is mind-boggling. The more information, and here's what really drives me nuts, is the more information that we get, the more questions need to be asked, right? It should be the other way around. If I get more information, I have less questions because now I have answers. But it doesn't matter if it's Cheeto or Roe. It doesn't matter if it's the FBI or DHS. Everybody that's answering questions just gives us more questions in return. So I really hope that some senator, preferably like a Ted Cruz, Josh Hawley, one of those guys, asks more questions about this FirstNet. It was created after 9/11, right? We saw the issues there. And here we are, 23 years later, and still we have an answer for communication issues, but are they being used? I really would love to know the answers. I tried to find out what I could. I know that there are agencies that adopted FirstNet in Pennsylvania, by the way, in 2019. This was launched in 2018. And remember, every single state approved FirstNet to be used between law enforcement and emergency services and all of that. So that's what I really want to know. This thing is so much worse. It gets so much worse the deeper we go. I don't know if we'll ever get answers to all of this, because here's another communication thing. Their conversations aren't recorded. They're only recorded in DC, or if it's a vice president or president. So will we ever know what Secret Service was saying to other Secret Service agents? You know, what were they communicating? What were they saying? I don't know. It leaves a lot more questions than any kind of answers. But hopefully this will give you some insight into how bad this communication issues really were. I'd love to hear your opinion on this. Let me know what you think about it down below. Again, if you like what I do, consider subscribing. See you in the next one. And as always, hold them down.